All right, recording started. Hello, everyone. My name is Victor Villegas. I am Professional Development Director for ACE, Association for Communication Excellence. And thank you for joining us for this special webinar. This webinar, we have a presenter, D.Scott Smith. He is a collaborator sitting in the junction of strategy and execution. He is known as a motivational listener. Was I muted there?
Yeah, I lost the audio for a bit there.
Okay, well, let's try that again.
All right.
So what was the last part that you heard there?
You were just giving an introduction, which is good.
So okay. Well, let's see. Scott is
a motivational listener, and that was the
okay. So the book, Motivational Listener, A Practical Guide to Succeed at Business Networking Events. So Scott and his wife, Christine, are enjoying their third decade of marriage. 3 children, 3 dogs, 1 cat, a bunny, and an undisclosed number of fish inhabit their lives. Scott usually has a guitar handy and might be found at your local blues jam. So I was saying, I think when the audio got cut off, that we got to get together and jam sometime.
Yeah. We can do some drone songs.
Excellent. So Scott and I actually met online via Twitter, I believe, right? We found we had common interest in social media, drones, and innovation, and we were both connected to Oregon State University. So we've been able to connect online and meet in person several times, which is a perfect example of networking and the whole reason we're here, right? So Scott, take it away.
All right. All right. So so I am Scott Smith, motivational listener. Thank you, Victor. I'm really excited to be here to go through this session, how to thrive and not just survive at business networking events without stressing out or being fake. And so you gave a great introduction, and you don't need to hear more about my remarkably interesting history and biography. So we'll move on to it and make sure we leave time for questions at the end. So, and you should be seeing that change slide for you. Who should be attending?
Who should be attending us.
Yeah, all right. There we go. So, all right. So who's going to benefit from this presentation? So basically, if you attend business mixers, trade shows, conferences, or any networking events, and perhaps are uncomfortable at connecting with strangers, then you're in the right place today. If you know building a network is necessary for your business or career, and you just need to know what is it that you actually do to connect, what's the process, the steps, or the method to easily talk to strangers and make a connection that can build your network. So again, you're in the right place. So today, what I'm going to talk about is how to walk with confidence into a room full of hundreds or even thousands of strangers and build your network without feeling like you want to throw up. I'm going to present how to present what you have to offer without being fake or sleazy or salesy. Because when we go to networking events, the truth is that no one wants to be marketed to. We don't want to be sold to. And honestly, for me, it's one of the reasons why some networking events I don't want to go to, because I feel like it's just going to be 2 hours of bad commercials and hard sells. And we're going to go over how to walk up to a person that you've never met before, connect with them, and not be creepy. So I'm going to show you how to be memorable and how to make these connections without shoving a business card into their hand, because honestly, they're going to throw it away or lose it anyway. And these new connections, they're going to be the ones who will introduce you at the event without you even having to ask them. And you're going to be in control of the conversations without dominating them. And I'll show you how to build your network, creating opportunities for future discussions and not waste time or opportunity. Because perhaps you've heard or read that 80% of jobs are never posted. They actually just go to somebody within a network. And business networking provides the best return on investment over any other business tool that you can have. The best ROI is with business networking, is what you'll invest there. Because with networking, you can develop friendships, create opportunities for jobs, for your business, for projects. You can get referrals and so forth. You can find advice and mentors to work with, and you'll be able to gain assistance in your current work or projects and connect with those who have a positive influence on you, because we are indeed the sum of the 5 people that we spend the most time with. And you will be recognized as an expert. All right. So today, I am definitely going to give you my science-based method on how to walk into a room full of strangers, be confident, and be ready to build your network. And this method does not require you to be an extrovert, and it is not limited by being an introvert. So I'm going to give you the tools that you need to walk into the networking event or any conference, trade show, and connect with people, even if you don't know one person in the room. There could be hundreds or thousands, and maybe it's a small room with just a dozen or fewer people, or even worse, maybe there's just one person in the room when you get there. Because when there's only one person, you can't hide. And at that time, it's best if you actually have a method that allows you to be comfortable and connect with that person. All right, so that's what we're going to go over. And one of the things too is that when you connect with those people, this process, this method, will allow you to be remembered by them. So even though there's 1,000 people in the room, you'll be remembered as interesting and as an expert. And I can tell you, because the process works, and then you're on your way to build your network of advocates. So let me check in. I love this picture. You can see we've got this person in the middle, very engaging. She's kind of captured the attention of some folks. They're listening to her. And then there's this guy in the back. And you've probably seen him before. Maybe you are him. I don't know what he's got stuck to his finger. But anyway, he's kind of separated out from the group there. He's not really involved in the networking. But maybe this sounds familiar. As soon as you walk into a business networking event, you think, how long do I have to stay before it's rude for me to leave? And that's a direct quote from one of the guys that I worked with. He was like the engineer's engineer down in the heart of Silicon Valley. And that is exactly what he told me. And maybe you feel like networking comes natural for some people, but that you're not really certain what to do or how to connect. And perhaps you feel uncomfortable when you walk into a room in a networking event where you don't know many people, or you feel like they all know each other, but you are an outsider. So do you know that business networking is important for your career in business, but you just don't really have the plan when you go to events? Or the first thing you do at the networking event is looking for someone you know, or rush straight to the food to avoid talking to strangers. And perhaps you even secretly feel that you have more to offer, that maybe others get more opportunities for better projects, jobs, promotions, or business referrals. And maybe you feel like there's even this like invisible barrier between you and the other opportunities to do more good, solve bigger problems, make more money, help more people, spend more time with your family. And a network of advocates can help you meet those aspirations. So if this is sounding familiar, the good news is that's just all a bunch of symptoms. All you really need to know is the science of business networking. And that's what I really like about this. As I went through and wrote the book and really researched all of this, there's just a great amount of academic research out there. And we really live in a golden age right now where you can access research from the past, and there's plenty of current research going on. So we can go out and we can really see what goes on with brain science, with the neuroscience of relationships. So we're going to go through the science of networking. And let me just tell you that when you do know and use the science of networking, that you'll be able to walk into any networking event full of confidence that others will recognize, that you'll be in control of the conversation with people that shortly before that were just strangers. And at networking events, again, you will be memorable to those you meet. So what you're going to do is you're going to be able to build your network of advocates, and these people are going to be excited to be able to connect up with you again, and they're going to be willing to be mentors, advocates, send referrals for you. These are the experts, and the way you connect, you will also yourself be seen as a network, as an expert. And so just a little bit about me, and I realized that I'm actually not in our third decade because, you know, when you first get married to that 10th year anniversary, so it's 35 years we're going to be married. So I guess we're actually in our fourth decade of marriage. So anyway, I have a Bachelor of Science from Oregon State University, concentrated in finance with a minor in behavioral sciences. So that's psychology, sociology, and cultural anthropology, the individual groups, and how we relate to each other. Turns out this has been very helpful in business. I also did earn an MBA while working full-time and still spending time with my family. And then Victor also mentioned that I wrote the book, Motivational Listener, Be Interesting by Being Interested. It is a practical guide on being successful at business networking events. So let's move on and tell you about what I really did to discover this whole science of networking. And again, really to me, it was interesting because it is science-based. So ever since I was in high school, I've been attending networking events. My mother was very involved in the community. And so I went to a lot of different events where there was government officials, business people, nonprofit organizers, and they'd all come together. And at these events, I'd met people that were great at connecting. And I met a lot of people who were awkward and uncomfortable, and it made me uncomfortable to be around them. For some people, it was a struggle to be at the events, and for others, it just seemed like they were so natural and they connected so easily with people that they'd never even met before. So I started to notice patterns, and this is one of the things that the brain is very good at, looking at patterns. So I started to incorporate those into my networking, and it was remarkable. And then I started teaching this. Then I turned it into an e-course and into a book. And here we are talking today. But when you use this process, it is so simple to connect to people. Again, whether you're an extrovert or an introvert, or myself, really an ambivert, it doesn't matter. So these science-based secrets of networking allow you to walk into any event and not only be comfortable, but also confident and have a process and a plan to be memorable, interesting, and to build your network of advocates. So when you know and you use the science of networking, you will walk into any event full of confidence, and you'll be ready to build that network. So let's talk about this first one, which is you are remarkable. So you have to believe that you have something to offer. So when you are good at something, you forget that you didn't always know what you know or have the ability to do what you do. It might seem like common knowledge, but what you know is not common. And I'll just tell you, it is a troubled world out there. And those people have problems. They're looking for something or someone to solve those problems. And it's likely that you understand their problem much better than they do. And that's why you can solve it. Now, it could be a computer network or a hardware problem, it could be plumbing or electrical issues, perhaps some sort of relationship concern. Whatever the problem is, they want it fixed. Now, if you don't believe that you have great value to offer, your lack of confidence will be evident and you will be less interesting. So it's like when I was in junior high school and the buddy of mine, he didn't get to dance when he asked the girl, he's kind of looking at the ground. He's like, you wouldn't want to dance with me, would you? Well, of course not. I mean, we remember those days. You have to have confidence, because when we don't believe that we have something to offer, that we are indeed the right person to solve the problems, the other person that we're talking to, they're going to think the same thing. So have confidence, but confidence is not arrogance. The difference is that confident people give and arrogant people take. So hopefully that's making sense. So let me put some context to this, and I'll just say we all have our little pet peeves, and one of mine is when I hear some business person say to me, contact me if I can help you, or how can I help your business grow today? Because it is not my job to know how they can help me. I want them to know my problems better than I do. They should tell me how they can help me. So just recently we had kids in our neighborhood, and I loved it because they're exercising their entrepreneurial wings, going door to door looking for work. But what they didn't, they knocked on my door, and they didn't ask if there was some work they could do for me, which would have been really arrogant on their part, taking. They had their wagon with buckets, soap, towels. They knocked on my door, and they were telling me they could wash my car. So apparently they looked in the driveway and they knew my problem, and they came to me, said what they could do, and offered that solution. So when you get this right, when you realize that you solve problems, that you make people's lives better, that is a huge boost for your confidence. And you're not selling these folks at the event. And I'll talk more about that later, but you are building a network of advocates, and they will do the selling for you. So you absolutely need to know what problem you solve and why you are the right person for them to choose. So know you are remarkable, because you have some remarkable, well, my headline ran off the slide, but you know what I'm saying here. You know some remarkable stuff. The knowledge that you have is embedded in your brain, and you can instantly recall solutions to problems. You can answer questions with ease. You never have to search Google. You're a walking database of information in your area of expertise. But it was not always that way. You had to learn that information. School, seminars, workshops, trial and error. It was not easy, but what you know is quite valuable to the person with the problem. And as you become familiar with the information and you start to apply that knowledge, you form new neural pathways in your brain. And the information becomes hardwired inside your head, so it becomes easy for you to retrieve that data on demand. And this hardwiring process does not stop. We continue to learn and develop this long-term store of knowledge which is valuable and will solve problems. So a few weeks ago, shopping for a phone for my son. He's 16 years old. He hasn't really needed one in the past, but he's been driving, and so it's time to get him a phone. All those, safety concerns, those parental needs. So I wanted to add him to our Xfinity mobile plan, but I didn't want to buy him a new phone. And I knew I could use an iPhone for the service. And he's been using an iPhone 5, but that didn't work. So I had to get an iPhone SE. And so I'm shopping online, and I decide I'm going to call some stores around up in the Portland area because there's more of them there. And I end up talking to a store owner, and I told him about the situation, and he clearly understood the problem, actually much better than I did. He knows my 16-year-old son doesn't need a $1,000 iPhone. But to be compatible with Xfinity, he tells me that the phone, this iPhone SE, should have last been used on a Verizon service, and that will cause the least difficulties in adding that line to my service. And he was exactly right. So his knowledge saved me hundreds of dollars. I knew a few details, like which model would work, but he knew the problem better. And sure enough, he checked the phone that we bought from him. It took it over to Xfinity. It worked perfectly. His knowledge, hugely valuable to me. So the first secret in business networking is to know that you are remarkable, have valuable knowledge, and solve problems, which is something that we can sum up in purpose. I'm not necessarily talking about, kind of our place in the cosmos. It's closer to Earth. It's very simple. Every business, organization, department, and person must have purpose. It's the answer to the question, what would the world be missing if we did not exist? If the answer is nothing, then you need to go find something else to do. But it's really most likely that the world would be missing something if you did not exist. We each have unique points of view, experiences, and synthesized solutions. And because we have these synthesized solutions, we have something that makes us unique. All right, so let's get on to the second point here. And that is, in business networking, body language is not important. So those that are best at networking aren't concerned about crossed arms or how someone's feet are positioned. And just because someone's arms are not crossed doesn't mean that they're open to connecting with you. Business networking experts know body language is not as important as emotional intelligence. So there's research that indicates that having good emotional intelligence is a better indicator of success than a person's intelligence quotient, better than their IQ. So if you're focusing on the wrong indicators, you will be wasting time and potentially derailing a relationship with a potential advocate. When you place emphasis on understanding and applying emotional intelligence, you might have a friend for life or a fanatical supporter because emotion is linked to embedding memories, causing experiences to be memorable. Your connection with a potential advocate will be deep and lasting if it starts at an emotional level. So, emotional intelligence is the ability to read and understand the emotions of others and to regulate your own emotions, then apply that information to facilitate thought and achieve goals, which I know that sentence is pretty thick, and so I'll break it down. Many of us have had classes and attended seminars or even sat through presentations from managers about body language. We learn the fundamentals, and we're taught and practice to maintain eye contact, have a firm handshake, how to stand with an open posture, which is inviting. And we may have even heard about the hero stance, right? This is hands on your hips, feet placed a little too widely apart. We've heard that this hero stance can improve our interpersonal relations. But the bottom line is it's all something that is an intentional act. Body language can be faked, but when you use your emotional intelligence, your ability to create a deep connection quickly will be much easier. So if a person you want to meet is standing alone with arms crossed, it may not mean that he's not open to talking with you. Give it a shot. Go over and engage with that person. And an emotionally intelligent person will read if that individual is open to connecting or wants to be left alone. So I remember being at a smaller business networking event. It's probably around 120 people or so in the room. And I was engaged in a conversation with a business owner, and she was telling me about her history in the industry. And at one point, she mentioned that her brother was instrumental in getting her involved in her current profession. Her body language was unchanged, but a few of the words she chose and the momentary expressions on her face told me, and this is through the use of emotional intelligence, that something happened to him. And she went on to tell me that he had died in his early 50s from cancer because I was able to share this special and more emotional moment with her, we connected. And several years later, we still have a great connection. And so our brains are great at pattern recognition. And given enough experience, we recognize patterns, and we come to have expectations and conclusions based on the patterns that we perceive. That saves us a bunch of energy and time. So, for example, if we're following a car and coming to an intersection, even though the driver may not have put on the turn signal, but the car is slowing, drifting to the right, we can anticipate that they're going to make a right turn. This is all based on experience. And so what was it that I saw that cued me into the story behind the brother's death? Well, it was these micro expressions. Now, they happen in an instant, like 1/10 to 2/10 of a second. So fast that we may not be able to notice them on a conscious level, yet it's a part of our emotional intelligence to be able to interpret what's happening. So these micro expressions transcend culture and are incredibly difficult to fake. And there are 7 micro expressions: disgust, anger, fear, sadness, happiness, surprise, and contempt. And they're going to pop up during conversations, and an emotionally intelligent person is going to notice this. So the business owner that I mentioned earlier, we didn't connect because of a firm and friendly handshake or because we maintained good eye contact while we were talking. It was because I read her emotions and responded correctly. So, how do you get good at something? Well, you just do it. You could read a lot of books, take quizzes, try to learn your way into emotional intelligence, and that might work. But the best way is to connect with people, and you will experience these micro expressions and the corresponding reactions. And in this way, you can build your internal database of experience and correctly read people's emotions. And you'll be able to connect with them deeply because you understand them, and that will be at a level beyond our capacity for language. They're just going to get a good feeling about you. And these expressions are not only one aspect of emotional intelligence, but because they cannot be faked, you will go beyond simple body language cues to connect with new people at networking events. So let's move on to the third tip here, the third secret of business networking. And this is understanding people's greatest fears. So the story is this: there's a prison, and there's a prison yard with a large pile of gravel in it. And each day it was the prisoner's task to use a shovel and a wheelbarrow to move that pile from one side of the yard to the other. Each shovel load into the wheelbarrow, they'll cross the yard, dumped and back again. And when the pile was moved, it was time to move it back to where it started. And this was not the prisoner's punishment. You see, the prisoner's cell had a window that faced the prison yard where he could see the pile of gravel. And his punishment was not the back-breaking physical labor. It was the knowledge that all of his efforts, each drop of sweat, all of his work was meaningless, and that he was irrelevant. And great networkers understand that our greatest fear is not pain or loss, but irrelevance. Now, when we go to networking events, if we become someone's sales target, some part of a quota, then we are reduced to irrelevance. When we look at what people are willing to risk, it's like exemplified by emergency and first responding personnel who are willing to risk life and limb in service to others. What we don't want to risk is rejection and disappointment, which I do consolidate into irrelevance. So this is all rooted in our need to belong. So research informs us that our need to belong is a strong and basic need and has the ability to be a key motivator. So if you want to persuade someone, inclusiveness and belonging are great tools. This is critical in your own emotional experience at events. So the academic research tells us that a lack of belonging or feeling of exclusion results in emotional distress and a host of other negative junk. But the bottom line is you do belong. That's the reason why you're at the event. So don't let your inner voice tell you different. You are relevant at the event and you have something to offer. To remember our first secret. And you should not suffer a feeling of irrelevance, and your actions at the networking event should never cause another attendee to feel that you consider them irrelevant. So if you don't do this right, you can alienate the people that could be your greatest advocates. Now, I mentioned that I've been to hundreds of networking events, and there were those guys that were there strictly to sell me. And those people have already lost. Perhaps you felt this way at events. You met a new person, they extend their hand, and they ask for your name and what you do. But what you hear is, I'm Jake. How can I make money off of you? Right? So because the truth is, again, nobody wants to be someone's mark. No one wants to be just a transaction. This kind of behavior makes you feel irrelevant. It's just a sales opportunity for someone. Now, when you get this right, and you leave that person feeling better about themselves, they'll be glad that they stopped to talk with you, and they'll want to support you, learn more to be your advocates, because they understand that they do not, because you understand they don't want to be treated as irrelevant. And again, so talk about motivational listening, but you may have heard of active listening. And active listening is, we probably all receive training in this. And it's active in the sense that you're being intentional about letting the person know that you're paying attention to them and that you're receiving the message that they're sending. However, they are in control of the conversation. And those that are successful at networking events understand that time at these events is limited. There's a lot of people who could be your potential advocates. So mastering the ability to control the conversation while being a good listener is a skill that can be learned. And when done effectively, that person not only feels relevant, they will find you to be interesting. So I was at a networking event. I found myself at a table, and I already knew a bunch of the people that were there, and we had this open networking time, so you could just kind of move about the room. And so since I was there for a purpose, I didn't want to talk sports and weather with the people I knew. I started to cross the room, and I ran into this lady, Ruth. And we spoke for a couple of minutes, and the majority of the conversation was really her speaking to me as I asked her directed questions. And then a friend of hers was passing by. She literally reaches out, grabs him by the arm, and says, "You have to meet this interesting man." So as President Teddy Roosevelt said, nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. So if you lead with a sales pitch of any kind, you're making that person feel irrelevant, simply a target. And when you understand this fear, you will focus on building relationships with one person at a time, learning about them, and thereby becoming an interesting person. All right, so we're trying to get to the questions here, but let's just sum up real quick. The first three, understand that you have something of value to offer, that body language can be faked, but emotional intelligence is really what you need to be able to connect with people. And that our greatest fear is just becoming someone's sales target and feeling irrelevant. So if this makes sense, we're going to just keep going, because the fourth secret is ditch the pitch. So you may have heard about elevator pitches. They are dead. An elevator pitch is a short statement that tells someone about your business, about your department, whatever it is that you do, and then the time that it takes to travel, for an elevator to travel between floors. This kind of canned response to a question about what you do is like the autoresponders from a website or email. This is one that I actually received just a couple of weeks ago. And you can see they got my name right there, hi, username. And when someone asks you what you do, and you're just barking out your memorized message, it sounds as impersonal and rehearsed as it is. And you just may as well hand them a sales brochure and walk away, because the conversation is over. But when you've listened to the person and you know the problem and the solution that you offer well, you can tailor the message to your audience. And every public speaker or successful salesperson will tell you, know your audience. If the person you are talking with could be an advocate for you, then present the problem you solve. And because we often get really enraptured with our own product skills, training, and technology. And recently, I was at a networking event. I was talking with a man who's a part of the senior management of a company that provides educational software. And so when I asked what he did, his response was very quick. He said, education is fundamental, and we help 100,000 students each day, which was very snappy. And perhaps I'm not connected to the customers that would purchase his company's products, but I felt like he's been practicing that line for quite a while. And when we were talking, he could have discovered that I have a son in high school, and he could present the solution that his company offers in terms with which I could relate. It could be something like, oh, your son is in high school. You know, many high school students struggle with traditional teaching methods, and we want students to comprehend today and excel tomorrow. Now, this puts a solution in terms that are related directly to our conversation, and it makes me feel included. So the bottom line here is listen to the person, drop the elevator pitch, and share about the problem you solve in terms that connect with your potential advocate. And so this brings us into the fifth strategy, which is have a secret weapon, some secret sauce. Now, some people are really good at networking because they're famous or beautiful, which is very convenient but hard to teach. Some people seem to have this natural magnetism or charisma, and that's also very hard to teach. Although there are some people that will tell you they can teach you to be charismatic, perhaps. The bottom line is those that are successful at events and are able to build a strong network of advocates have some secret weapon they employ. So, of course, I recommend being a motivational listener, that you be interesting by being interested. Because if you get this wrong, if you're an extrovert because you think extroverts have some advantage at networking events, you risk being a bore, right? A bore, so an unmannered, unrefined, rude person. And that's not who you are, but extroverts can get in their own way of networking because it's talk, 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 right? Extroverts get energy when talking. Now, if you're an introvert and you're thinking that you've got it made, introverts have the potential of getting lost in the crowd. So at the next event, people may avoid the boorish extrovert, but never remember the introvert. When you use your secret weapon during the event, people will make it a point to introduce you to others because they will find you to be interesting. And your face and voice will be imprinted on their brain. Now, this is where the science comes in. So when I teach about being a motivational listener, which is the science-based method of connecting to people at networking events, to be a motivational listener doesn't require being an extrovert. It's not limited by being an introvert, but our brains are absolutely remarkable, able to process huge amounts of information fast. Now, a recent estimate said that the best supercomputer would take about 40 minutes to process what your brain can do in 1 second, which is pretty remarkable. It's good and bad because our brains can process so much information so fast and speech is slow, we can think about a lot of stuff while we're having conversations. So the research tells us that we daydream between 30 and 50% of our waking hours. So during a 10-minute conversation, you're daydreaming for 5 minutes, I'm daydreaming for the other 5 minutes. Hopefully somewhere along the line, there's some overlap. And this daydreaming is not rude. It's just that our brains process so fast that we can pay full attention to a conversation and still be thinking about other things. But there's a portion of our brain which will help us out. It's right behind our eyeballs, called the orbital frontal cortex. And this is my view of what's inside your head. One of the responsibilities for the orbital frontal cortex, the OFC, is error detection. So a simple example is you're driving, which is a set of tasks that you know very well. It's very automatic. You don't need to think about which way to turn the key to start the car or look to see where the accelerator or brake pedals are. It's just what you do. So as you're driving down the road in this automatic mode and your brain is wandering, you're thinking about your day at work, what you'll do when you get home, your weekend plans, and then a squirrel runs right out into the road. And at that moment, your OFC says, hey, this is unexpected. We need to focus the brain activity on this situation. And while you try to not squish the squirrel, sideswipe the parked car, or go head on into the oncoming car, you cannot be thinking about where you'll be going for vacation this year. And another function of the OFC is for facial and vocal recognition. So at a networking event, if you are able to activate the other person's OFC, you will not only focus their attention on your conversation, you will imprint your face and your voice in their brain. And this is something that you can do simply by stopping cliche and expected questions. So when you approach someone at an event, approach someone at a networking event, and you repeat expected questions or comments, you will not activate their OFC. They'll continue to daydream. Hi, I'm Scott. Enjoying the conference? What do you do? These are expected questions. Don't do that. Here's a question that that I ask, and I give you full permission to use this. It's a way of being unexpected while not being weird. I ask people, how's your world? Or what's going on in your world? And because this is an unexpected question, they have to interpret the meaning. Is the world the event? Is it their job, their family, their place in the universe? They're thinking about it. So this is the challenge that I give you, and you can do this today or the next time you go into a store. When the cashier, when you're checking out, asks you those expected questions, how's your day? Did you find everything you were looking for? You can respond appropriately, but then ask them, how's your world? And see how they respond. It's unexpected, and it activates their orbital frontal cortex. Their brain becomes focused. And at that moment, they won't be daydreaming. They're going to be focusing on your conversation. So try it out a few times. Perhaps adapt the question to your personality. But when you're at a networking event, activate the person's OFC and get your face and voice lodged into their brain. Because we've heard it's not what you know, it's who you know. But really, this has been updated. Today, it's not who you know, it's who knows you. So when you use your secret weapon, such as being a motivational listener, you will be remembered and considered an expert and be interesting because you're interested. Now, the next thing that you have to do is invest in mentoring. So my father was my mentor, and when he died when I was 33 years old, and really I was lost, and I really lost years because I thought I could go it on my own. Then I got a mentor, and I've paid for a coach, and currently I'm invested into a weekly mastermind. But since I started that, I've never been without a mentor or a coach, someone to keep me accountable for someone that understands me and my goals. Because Sir Richard Branson said, mentoring is the missing link between a promising business person and a successful business person. So if you try to go it alone, you risk wasting opportunities in years that you will never get back. You can spend hundreds or thousands on books, seminars, courses, degrees, and if you don't have the support of someone to keep you accountable, it is rare to be truly successful and reach your potential. When you have someone that understands you the value that you have to offer and will hold you on point, not allowing you to accept less than your best, you will release your talents. So there's a legend out there that there was a study conducted at Yale University on the value of writing down your goals. Turns out that study never happened. It doesn't mean, of course, that there's not value in written goals. It's just that there was no research to support it until a study was conducted at Dominican University in California by Dr. Gail Matthews. And here's what they found. And there's 5 steps, and each one of these improves the probability that you will achieve your goals. And so, crazy enough, the first thing is to have goals. And it probably actually won't surprise you how many people actually don't have goals. Second thing, to improve the probability of achieving your goals is to write them down. And so in the study, each one of these steps improve the probability that people are going to achieve their goals. third step, and I'm going fast because I know time is running. Develop a plan that will help you meet your goals. Then the fourth step, actually tell somebody about your goals. And this is what I found, is that the teacher always learns more than the student. So when you have created goals, you've written them down, you've developed a plan to meet them, but then you actually explain that to another person, it helps you refine and define what those goals are and your plan. Now, the final step is be held accountable to meeting your goals. And this is where mentoring comes up. So the bottom line is don't try to go it on your own. Attending conferences and other events is expensive, but most of all, it takes your time. So don't waste your resources when a mentor can keep you accountable. So I did tell you that I was going to show you how to walk with confidence into a room and connect quickly and to present what you do without being fake or sleazy, and how to walk up to a person that you've never met and not be creepy, how to become memorable, and that these new connections are going to be the ones to introduce you without you having to ask, that you can control the conversations without dominating them by using directed questions, build your network to create opportunities, not waste time or opportunity, and that you will meet experts and be seen as an expert. So, summing up again, you are remarkable. You have something to offer. Body language is not important. It really is emotional intelligence. That irrelevance is our greatest fear. Ditch the pitch. Use a secret weapon. I recommend motivational listening, and invest in mentoring. And one more thing before we go, if you go to my website, I've got a calendar set up, and I've blocked out time. So if anyone wants to speak with me individually, we've got 1 hour sessions set up. You can schedule those this week, and whatever your challenges are to networking, I can help you achieve that. And on the call, we'll just go through, create a step-by-step plan, help you grow your network and build your career or your business. No charge, just something that I'm offering because Victor is such a cool guy, and I thank him for letting me be here. So if you solve problems and are willing to help others find solutions, and that you have a desire to be better and you're coachable, and if you're willing to try something different, fail on occasion, and willing to do the work because there is no easy way to build your network, then be willing to be accountable to someone. Perhaps this is something that we can do together. And I offer it because it is an honor for me to give back and to help people to learn this method to build their network of advocates. I am a coach, and I love inspiring people to greatness, to try things that they haven't tried before, and my experience is that they surprise themselves. And so perhaps we'll be able to work together, and if not, no worries. So you can go to dscottsmith.com/contact Scott, and there's me, my email and phone number. Contact me in the way that is most convenient for you. And so with that, I'll turn it over for questions. Victor?
Thank you, Scott. That was great. Yeah, I can attest to Scott's mentorship, and I feel we're mentoring. We even do it online, via Twitter,
Indeed.
a phone call. We've talked on the phone, and we've met in person, and it's always a pleasure. We talk about all kinds of stuff, right? So what's going on in your world? I mean, from drones to creativity to innovation, agriculture. It's always a pleasure talking with you, Scott, and I appreciate you talking about these different ways that people can network. And I love that about becoming interesting by showing that you're interested, so it's not always about us, it's what we can bring to other people, and that's what gets people's attention. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. We've got a few minutes left. If not, I got some questions too, but let's check the chat box here. Not seeing any at the moment, so I'll ask a question. Sure. how do you do the networking online? So, I mean, let's say you don't have access to the people, in person, and a lot of these folks do some social media type of stuff. So how do you actually network online?
Yeah. So, and that's great because we it's really hard to separate out the personal from the online. And one of the key things is if you can represent who you are online, so that when they meet you face to face, you're the same person. That's really the first step. And so I've been able to connect with people through different digital sources. And when we met face to face, I remember Jackie down in Newport Beach when we met in San Diego at an event. She actually was saying, "You are the same person in person as you were online." So
Yeah.
that's really one of the keys. It's easy to try to, so you think of the gamers, the junior high kids or whatever, who create this persona that they want to be, and it's different from really who they are. So when you're online, make sure that you are who you are. And this kind of goes back to that whole relevance, irrelevance thing. Make sure that you're looking for opportunities to connect other people, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so if I can go out and go, if I know that somebody has a drone question or problem, I'm like, oh man, you got to talk to Victor, right?
Yeah.
And
Right.
so
Right.
I'll get onto LinkedIn and do a LinkedIn introduction, and I'll say, oh, person A, meet Victor. Victor's an expert in drones, and Victor, meet this person. Here's what they're good at. And so that makes you valuable.
Mm-hmm.
And what's really cool is when you know what people offer, and you get to present that and say, oh yeah, you need to talk to my buddy Victor because he's the expert on drones. He's the drone whisperer, and I'm the hero, right? So online, look for those opportunities where you can make connections for other people.
Yeah, well, and this webinar is a perfect example because, I mean, you know about networking and talk about that and present about that. And it's like, that would be great for our folks, that communicators, especially with our conference coming up next month, is, a lot of times people, they go to the conference and we have, several meetings where everybody's in a room and it's like, some people don't know how to talk to each other, people that they don't know or whatnot. So I thought this would be a perfect way to kind of get that started. So people thinking is like, okay, what am I going to do when I go to the conference? Am I just going to sit in a corner by myself, just go to workshops and listen? Or am I actually going to be an active participant and network and so see if I can, provide for other people?
Because that at that conference, so this is coming up next month, right?
Next month, yes. And
so how many people are going to be there?
Usually around about 200 or so, 200
All right.
plus.
Yeah. So that's, and it's very likely that some people will know each other from past experience. You're going to have new people or people that have never been before, and maybe they don't know anybody. And so, one of the key things, especially with the online world, is look at who those attendees are and kind of do your homework ahead of time. And you say, oh, this person is someone I wanted to talk to. And do your homework, check out their LinkedIn bio, or send them an email or, something so that you can kind of prepare the way so that when you get there, it's not necessarily just a cold opening, that somebody. But if you don't, the other thing is that you are at a networking event, right? I mean, you're at a conference, and people, so it's not weird for you to just walk up to somebody. But again, if you are willing to kind of put yourself out there, but if you have a plan, a way to connect with people, that confidence is going to help. So my son, 16 years old, we're at the OSU spring football game, and Brandon Cooks is there outside the Valley Football Center. We're walking by and we're looking at his Lamborghini Aventador that was parked there. So that attracted my son's attention. I look over and I go, hey, that's Brandon Cooks, and that guy's got a Super Bowl ring, right? So it's kind of my son's a football player. So we're there And I'm like, hey, you want to go say hi? And he's like, oh, no, I wouldn't want to. So that opportunity is gone. I'm not going to force him to do that. But when you have those moments, so I see, Becky's saying, I need to challenge myself to meet new people at the ACE conference, right? So it's easy to hang out with friends. Becky, absolutely. That is the easy thing to do. And don't miss those opportunities to be with your friends as well. And realize that out of 200 people, there's going to be more really cool, interesting people that you won't meet than you will meet. But the ones that you meet, take the time to get to know them. Ask them questions.
So there was another question from Chris here. It says, do you set a goal to meet a certain number of people at an event to prod yourself into reaching out when maybe you feel like the odd man out?
Oh, yeah. So that's another great thing. Yeah. If you set some sort of a goal, and this is where you're looking at, what do you need in your network? What are you missing? And so, maybe you're a web developer, but you need somebody that understands social media. And so you're going, well, I'm going to go to the conference. So I'm going to look for people, and maybe ahead of time, that have that skill set that fills in a gap for me. And so, do your work ahead of time and seek those people out, and ask your friends, right, that are there. It's like, who do you know that knows this? Because that's who I want to meet. Maybe they can make an introduction. So if you have a plan, you understand what you need in your network, that's going to help. Then you can, with a confident process, realize that you can reach out to that person and connect. So the number of people that you want to meet. This is so how many days is the conference? Is it a single day or?
No, it's 3 days.
3 days. Okay. Oh, that's great, because not only will you have the conference, but you'll have, breakfast, dinner times to be able to connect with people. And so you'll be able to meet a lot of people, more than just if it's a 1 day or a 1 afternoon, half day type conference. Generally, if I was going to go to just a networking event, like a Chamber of Commerce type deal, 2 hours type deal, I actually walk in with 5 or fewer business cards with me, because my goal isn't to hand out a ton of business cards. My goal is to connect with at least one person, but probably, depending on the time, not more than 5. And so when you're here, really not look at the number of people that you want to connect with, but look at who it is that you need to connect with. Is it a geography? Is it an expertise area? Is it someone who can make introductions for you? Look at what you need for your network. And then I see Natalie's got a question about what's a good way to join a conversation with a group. Yeah, and that's great too. So at a networking event, when people are together, there's 2 or more people. This is, again, where you're kind of that emotional intelligence plays in. And if you look at people and they're kind of like leaning into each other, and they're, kind of touching each other or whatever, it's just a little more intimate, you're going to know that that's probably not the conversation that you're going to join. But the best thing is that you see that group of people kind of step into there and kind of look for that opportunity to kind of step in, make eye contact with the person, and they know what everyone's there for. So it's likely that they're going to kind of open that door for you to join the circle. And the recommendation that I always have is start with listening to what the conversation is. And, because I think it was Abraham Lincoln said, if people will think you're a fool, but it's better to not open your mouth and prove them right. Right. It's just listen, right? Get in there and listen to what the conversation is. And what you're really looking for is maybe that one person out of the group that you can focus with on directed questions. So when you have that opportunity, a great way to start is when you find out that somebody's going to mention, oh, I'm involved in this project or that type of thing. A great opening question is, how long have they done that? And if it's been a long time, then you can ask them questions about what kind of changes they've seen over that time. If it's relatively new, like, yeah, I just started this week, then you can ask them about what they did before that, right? These are great questions that you're not just hitting them with, who are you and what do you do, right? That how can I make money off of you, or how can I succeed off of your back, right? I mean,
you're actually showing actual interest in what the person has to say. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thanks, Scott. Appreciate you coming on and talking with us and presenting all these different ideas. Again, if you want to take part of one of those free sessions that Scott talked about, he has his URL for the website there, and feel free to email him, give him a call. Great guy to talk with. Thank you, everyone. We look forward to seeing you at the ACE conference next month. Hopefully most of you will be there and you're already registered. And thank you. We'll see you in the either next webinar or at the conference.
Thank you, everybody. I've enjoyed it. And yeah, please reach out. You can call direct, you can email. On the website, there's a little Calendly thing, and you can schedule time within there.
And Scott, you also have a blog on there, right? I think on your website.
Yeah.
Yeah, some blog and
it could be, but there's some interesting stuff.
Yeah, there's some good stuff there to read. All right. Thank you much. Have a good rest of your day, everyone.
All right. Cheers.